Hello and welcome to Maven Capital Partners podcast Invested. This is the sixth episode of the podcast and you're in for a treat. Now, my name is Laura Boyd. I usually interview everyone from Harrison Ford to Lewis Capaldi in my day job as a showbiz reporter. But this podcast is a little bit different. Here we talk to entrepreneurs and CEOs at the heart of some of the UK's fastest growing companies. And today, we are interviewing CEO and founder of Quorum Cyber, Federico Charosky. He has such a fascinating story about how he went from Buenos Aires to Edinburgh with various locations and businesses in between. And he is so open about how he's embraced failure, the highs and lows of his career, how he juggles being at the forefront of such an important business with family life. And he's just a really, really interesting guy. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did chatting to Federico. Sit back, relax, and be inspired. Freddy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. This podcast is a little bit different. We talk about business, but we talk about the people behind the business. We want to know how you got to be such a success, to hear about the highs and lows and what you really are like as a person and what drives you. So, from Buenos Aires to Edinburgh, take me back to the start. Tell me what Freddy as a little boy was like.
Well, that's a loaded question. It is key to the start, right? So, born and raised in Argentina, but not particularly a football fan. I was a chubby geek kid. So that kind of dictated that the normal childhood of the Argentinian kid obsessed with football wasn't mine to have. I had an actually pretty rough time at school and at elementary and kind of secondary school. Didn't have lots of friends. It was just, obviously, I was bullied quite relentlessly. And I think that was a key part of what formed and shaped my identity that got me to where we are today. So very early on, I hid in computers. I hid in an old Commodore 64. I started gaming and programming when I was 8 or 9 or something like that. And then I just got more and more involved in that culture that was just emerging at the time, right? So this is in a time pre-internet. I guess gaming was the beginning of it. But then as soon as modems became a thing and we started talking about BBSs where you would dial up into these servers, that's when I started getting my first hand into the culture of hacking and that universe. And that just became my life from then on.
I was so interested because when you go to university, what did you study at university, first of all?
I went straight into what you would now call computer science. At the time, I was information systems engineering, but what you would call computer science.
And when you went to university, it's very different from here because here you would maybe take a part-time job or you would work in a supermarket at the weekend, a few hours, and even that you complain at. But you said there's very much a culture of you work during the day, you study it. And I mean, it sounds intense.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. So I joined uni straight out of high school. So you're 18 when you join uni. And my degree was a 6-year degree, right? So a full-on engineering degree, Monday to Saturday with 80% attendance. So like none of the year 1, year 2 that you get in the UK. And as you say, I was lucky that I was living with my parents at the time. So years 1 and 2, I didn't have to work. But then I moved in with my girlfriend at the time. And at that point, you just got a job. You got a normal 9-to-5 job that you went to. I was very lucky that I got it in my industry. So I went into very early incident response, what at the time was virus outbreak response. And then you would go to uni. So you would go to uni from 6 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night. And then you would home, eat dinner, and you would do it all over again the next day. And then on Saturday, just for fun, you would do it from, I think it was something like 7 a.m. in the morning to kind of noontime. You would go to uni again. And then you were going. I did that for 6 years, which was quite brutal. But look, it has its advantages, right? So yes, I missed out on a lot of the fun that Europe has when they go to uni. But at the same time, by the time I graduated uni, age 22, I was a senior consultant at Deloitte with 4 years of experience, right? And that sets you apart a little bit when you start competing in the international market. You are ahead. I was the youngest kid in every room for a while, and I had to also learn how to navigate that dynamic, which was interesting in itself. Then I got bald and made it all easier.
Lovely. sounds incredible. It's quite hard to believe because, yeah, we're so used to that culture of you study during the day and you party at night. Are you making up for it in the partying stakes now? You told me you're just about to go to Spain
I am
to
about to
have
go to
a
Spain
few
for a
days.
weekend, but I have also twin boys that are 9 years old. So I think my partying days are long gone. I do what I can to compensate.
No, no. When you were younger as well, when did that kind of entrepreneurial spirit come in? Like
Mm,
when did the work side of it start? Because you were pretty young when you had a
yeah.
kind of interesting first job, I think.
Yeah, yes. Many yeses to all of those. So let me answer the first one. So entrepreneurial spirit. I think I got a bug. I got a couple of times. There were a couple of moments that kind of dotted the lines towards that path. And as probably most paths, it wasn't necessarily one that I chose consciously. It just a whole collection of decisions led me to that direction. The first one really was, well, actually, there's a pre-first one, which is I grew up in a relatively startup-y family. My mom was a big part of the breadwinning of my family. And she did that not through what she studied. She was a philosophy and literature teacher, but she opened a seamstress business. And with my dad as a doctor and surgeon in Argentina, which doesn't command the kind of revenue that it does in other places of the world, you're in a public hospital surgeon and professor at university, pays nothing. My mom was really the breadwinner. So her business, her startup was what saw us through my entire childhood. So I think there was something there about you make your lot that even unconsciously I got seeded in really early on. And then as I started going through my different roles, particularly Deloitte, were exposed me a lot to Europe. So I was traveling a lot through Sweden, France, Belgium. I was owning those territories for a couple of years for cybersecurity. I could see well off Europe, but still pretty dependent on corporate jobs. Like there was no perception of freedom that came with being in Europe. And when you're in Argentina, you're kind of looking out there thinking, well, when you make it to Europe, you make it. And I still saw people that were in the rat race of having to earn a job and didn't have the freedoms to make choices because they were still subject to the same pressures that most of us are everywhere in the world. So I think that really marked to me, okay, the corporate path doesn't necessarily make that any better. You're still pretty subject to somebody else's rules. And that probably there's a bit of hacker in that. There's a bit of kind of anarchist in there. That just didn't resonate. So I think those two things really shaped me. And then the opportunity came up I was in the US working with Google at the time as a consultant in there. And somebody offered me a permanent job in Google security team. And somebody else offered me to go do this crazy startup in Scotland. And I was in Palo Alto kind of going through that decision. And my heart was just convinced. There wasn't even a heartbeat of a question. And I went straight to the Scotland decision. So, which is probably not the natural decision, but I never doubted it for even a minute. I just followed my gut. But I think all of those moments educated me into that. And to your second point on what was the first job? So the first money I ever made really was selling bootleg games in a galleria when I was 15 or 16. That was the old days of kind of copying CDs from a master CD and then selling kind of completely illegally and massively under the counter copies of games when I was 15 or 16. So yes, thanks for reminding me of that.
Come a long way. It's fine.
Yes, it's fine. It's fine. I'm sure there's some kind of age where those terms just expire, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're in the past.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
How do you think you as a person have evolved over the years, particularly when you've taken on Quorum Cyber?
Wow. Speaking of long-winded questions, I think you learn, or certainly I don't know if this is generic to everybody going through this journey, but my lessons have been very much on the space of the collection of mistakes that you make along the way are actually the way. It's not the successes and it's not the things you got right or the ideas that you got right. It's actually the mistakes that mark the path more than the things you got right. And you need to develop a level of resilience to understand that those mistakes are the good parts of it. Like these mistakes are what actually are making you successful. But that includes getting 100,000 things wrong, right? You need to, the hardest thing when I'm talking about what's the life of the kind of entrepreneur with people, the hardest thing I've ever had to learn was you need to accept that in your journey, you're going to hurt people you love. The people that you've been working with that were the right people for a stage, but they're not for the next. And ultimately, my job is to curate the team at every stage for whatever comes next. And those moments where you need to look in the eye, somebody that's been bleeding for that's been investing themselves into you, and you need to break their heart and tell them, I can't take you forward because you're not the right thing. Those things have been the hardest to learn. And I think going back to your question of how have I grown, I think I've learned to make peace with some of the darker sides of the role that are just part of the role. It's undeniable. I've made peace with the fact that are the mistakes that get you to where you need to get to, not just good ideas. And there's an ultimate element of you're not in control of probably what it's the most important factor in the success or failure of the whole thing, which is time and luck. There's a moment where, for example, the Maven investment came just at the opening of pandemic, right? And we were able to close that deal 2 months into pandemic because we've been talking since 2 months before pandemic. If I hadn't had that investment, I would have been furloughing people like everybody else. But instead of that, I had Maven's backing, and I could actually go in doing like a hiring and a growing and expanding. So we came out of pandemic with a massive upwards momentum and then a full-on J curve that helped us achieve what we're achieving now. I wasn't in control. That was pure sheer luck and good timing. And like that, I can easily spot 3 or 4 moments in the history of QC in the last 8 years where we were completely not in control of the circumstances that created a moment for us to really capitalize on and take advantage of. So I think that's a lot of what I've learned and how I've changed over time is make peace that you're in control of some things, you're in control of little things, and you're completely out of control of others. And learning how to navigate through all of that is probably the job.
Well, that kind of leads on to my next question, because I was going to ask, how do you deal with those incredibly difficult times? Like, have you got people that you confide in? Do you have an outlet? 'Cause I think is it rock climbing you like? Or,
Rock climbing and
what
yoga
is
were my
your
two
kind of,
outlets. Yeah, no, I don't tell them anymore, unfortunately. Again, life got a little bit in the way. So rock climbing and yoga, which used to be my go-to things, are not, they take so much time that they're hard to fit into the day. Look, I think the first thing is my wife, right? I couldn't do this if my team at home wasn't there to support me. And I think the unsung heroes of all of these businesses are the families that support us, that enable us to do what we do. If my wife wasn't the rock that she is and the support that she is, and if my kids weren't part of that team, and if all of that wasn't healthy, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So the health of that entire universe is fundamental. And that's also what grounds me. So having a pizza and a glass of wine after a long day is about the best thing in the world. Taking the boys out rock climbing or going for a run outdoors, these are the things that bring me back down. And because you can really get up there in your ideas, you can really get out there in the heat of the battles, of the tensions of the board, the decisions, the risks. And something has to remind you to come back to the core. And in my case, that's my family.
are you good at getting that work-life balance? Do you think? Have you got that right?
What is right? I think I got it right for me. And this is something I usually talk a lot in the team. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I can tell everyone what work-life balance is. I think that's something we all need to look for and define to whatever it means for us. And challengingly, that sometimes means I will be online maybe on a Sunday at 8 a.m. because that's a moment of peace for me. And that's a moment of thinking for me. That's a moment where I can catch up with things. That works for me, but I never miss a bath time. So I'm here for every bath time with the boys. So at 6 o'clock, I religiously shut down because I need to come in and do that. And that's important to me. I shape and configure my life to what works for me. I think the freedom that we're trying to create in Quorum Cyber for employees, the proposition is partly help shape it to whatever works for you. That doesn't mean never look at emails after 6 o'clock, because some people might work better at night. I'm not arrogant enough to think I can determine it. So I think I've got it right for me, but I don't think that what I do is necessarily right for everybody. And part of the freedom is to find out your own paths.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And do you feel the same now as you did when you started out? Do you have that same drive and passion, or is it heightened now?
I think the passion probably changes, but doesn't dissipate. So what's exciting is different probably at every stage, right? But the core idea, I think there's almost like a reinvestment in the core idea. The more you do it, the more the core idea emerges as the real thing that got you excited. When you start, there's so much noise in the things that are getting you excited that you probably don't have the clarity. And if you do, I'm jealous of you, right? But the clarity comes as you iterate on it, and you really start to home in that that's why I do what I do. So this idea of We Fight Bullies, this idea of the moment that and the trust that customers give us to keep them safe, such a power in that. And when you get to show up to that, it is awesome. It is absolutely, it was one of the best fulfillments of being able to help a customer through their breach, being able to prevent one, being able to carry them and hold their hand as they go through those moments into a, that is super exciting. And to be able to go into that and refine it and reinvest and redesign and take it to the next level is to me, it's super cool.
What is the goal for you personally? Where do you see yourself in the next kind of 10 years or so?
Look, Quorum at the moment is fully on growth mode, right? We are in expansion internationally. We've set up in North America, and we're really going hard at becoming the de facto security partner for Microsoft across North America. We're having very unexpected, to a certain degree, success in the Middle East as well. There's a huge boom of cloud transformation over there, and Microsoft is leading the way. AI is now appear massively on the stage, in the center of the stage, and we're seeing it as a force multiplier to do what we were already doing, but more and bigger. And I'm still passionate about portfolio development, right? One of the things I'm always working on is what's over the next hill. And we're working a lot on identity. We're working a lot on industrial systems. So what's the future for Quorum Cyber? More of this, I think, continuing to grow at a sheer size level, at a market capture level, but also continue to grow at a portfolio level. One of the things our customers reflect back to us quite a lot is that they love that we're not a product reseller. We take them on a journey, and we adapt our portfolio depending on what that journey needs to look like for them. And that really works. So I don't know if there's necessarily a goal as much as a direction. And that direction is bigger and more of this, because I think we're not needing any less security in the world. And for as long as I can help in that problem, I think we have a reason to be here. Personally, it's probably an interesting question. I'm loving the challenge. So I'm a technical guy, right? I came from a technical background. I did this I wasn't a management CEO or a sales CEO. And I've had to learn to do a lot of that. I've really enjoyed some of those challenges. So I've really enjoyed working with private equity, learning the language and the thinking and the risks and how they look at the world. It's been a great addition to my toolkit. I didn't have. I particularly enjoyed working with my chairs at the different situations. Ian first, now Mark Humphreys. I've been really coached and developed by them. So I really still want to do that for a couple of years. At some point, I'm probably much more towards the strategy, vision, sales, the connecting with the pulse of what's out there and how I can help develop the portfolio, and less the day-to-day operational stuff. I think there's much better DNA there to do the day-to-day and the consistency and the discipline that comes that. I'm pulled massively towards the create new and think and idea world. So I think I'd love to get to a position where we can sustain an organization that has a president, day-to-day operations runner, and I can be more chief strategy, chief vision officer. But who knows? We'll see what happens next.
And is it nice to be able to do all this from Edinburgh? How are you enjoying Scotland?
Scotland is the best country in the world. So I can't complain. I chose to be here for a second time around, coming back from the Middle East. And that's both at a personal level, but also at a work level, right? At a personal level, Scotland is unbelievable. And Edinburgh in particular is incredible. You are 2 hours away from the most beautiful countryside in the world. It's a quiet town. It's a great quality of life for my family, which, as I said, I need that to be okay for me to be at my best. So Edinburgh is phenomenal. As long as it's under my control, I will remain a true Scot or rooted in Scotland. But also for work, the availability of talent in Scotland, the access to the universities, the quality of what Napier University, Abertay University, Glasgow Caledonian, Strathclyde, the quality of the talent they're creating is what we're standing on for the scale of what we're trying to build here. And then bringing that into Quorum Cyber Academy, where we kind of further develop that and build cybersecurity experts in a world where we're increasingly missing more. So it's a 3.5 million gap of talent apparently, and growing to 4. We don't have enough people to do this. So to be in a region where I can actually build that and drive that to the success of Quorum Cyber, to me, is fundamentally critical for the strategy.
And I'm going to pick up Glasgow while we're here. Also a great city.
Also a great city. Half my team lives in Glasgow. I'm a Chuckter. I'm in love with it. It's where I landed first, and I just fell in love with it. Had I landed in Glasgow, I'm sure I'd be saying the opposite. Not to widen the gap between these two conversations.
It's the age-old debate. It's okay. It's fine. We can see now, what Quorum Fedi is. That kind of front-facing. How do you think your friends and family would describe you?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because especially as I grew up, I think I always said this, but as I grew older and I started understanding more my own personality, my self-awareness, and I think my personality, and I'm going to use the word neurodiversity, but not as a diagnostic tool, but where I sit in all of that made a lot more sense. And it started to explain to me my relationships and my circles and my friendships. So I've always been very short on friendships, but very deep in those friendships. So I have very few, but very deep friends. And that was always me. So I think my friends who actually really get to know me would probably think that I'm quite, I don't know, not obsessed, but I go quite deep in the things that I like. I'm quite curious. I'm intellectually curious. I love to have a discussion on anything for hours. As long as I'm finding somebody to spar with, to debate it, to investigate, to learn from. I'm addicted to ideas and conversations, which can drive people insane because that means I can really kind of pour whiskey down their throats and talk about whatever they're interested in for hours. But that's part of the fun for me, is to peek into somebody's brain and connect to that. It is quite cool, and I really enjoy that. So I think my friends find me a good conversation partner.
I can imagine that. Yeah, I can see that would be a good conversation round a bar.
Yeah, exactly. That's my favorite, right? So what's my favorite day? Low-key pub and 2 hours of philosophy discussions, and that's me. I'm on my absolute height. My wife finds me unbearable, right? Because for exactly the same reason, she's the complete opposite to me. She's bubbly, she's super social, and she can't stand it when I want to talk 2 hours about philosophy with her. So she pushes me to much more challenge me on that front. So we strike a perfect balance between the two. And to my kids, I mean, my kids are 9, right? So you're at that beautiful stage where you're still the center of their world in a really endearing way, but they're highly intellectual, highly curious, highly funny. So I'm loving this stage where we just get to have an absolute blast. And I know I'm so conscious of the fleeting moment that I'm enjoying with those kids. I know by the time they're 12, I will be invisible to them. So I'm kind of trying to do the kind of scale up on the business while really enjoying the magical moments that I'm getting with them.
Yeah, you cling on to that, don't you? Because you can feel it every day. It's just, I've got a 4-year-old, and every day it's just like, there's another new thing, I'm kind of losing her.
I know.
But
yeah,
you cling
take
on
lots
to
of videos. One of the tips is take lots of videos. I spent hours rewatching the videos of when they were just everyday moments, because the gimmicks, the things that they do it for a second, and you don't want to forget them. So videos have actually saved us. It's really sad. We end up watching videos and drinking wine, just looking at the videos of the kids.
No, I know that feeling very, very well. Are they showing any signs of following in your footsteps? Are they interested in gaming and the like?
Yeah, super. They're super technology oriented, not in the obsessive iPad, but more they love the gaming. They've gone to a boot camp for coding. They've gone to a boot camp for typing. They're just super drawn towards that. Also, I think there's a mystique of the fighting hackers that they really buy into. So they say they want to be hacker fighters, which is really sweet. And astronauts, to be able to.
Before you go, can you tell us the best bit of advice you were ever given, and also a bit of advice you would like to share with our listeners?
Advice is difficult, right? Because the fact that it made sense for me doesn't mean that it has to make sense for anybody else. So I'm not sure if these are advices, but just almost like adages. This was true to me. Hopefully at some point it comes in your aid. Do with it what you might. The first one is probably don't go at it alone. I was very lucky that I had a sister company that would help me think and set up, and they were really helping me. But at the end of it all, Quorum Cyber was quite a lonely place at the beginning. There was not a lot of people day to day co-invested in making this a success. And when I look at some of the other teams and other companies around there where there's maybe 2 founders, I've always been very jealous of that. Having somebody to, when things are really dire, having to think through their problem, having somebody that is equally emotionally invested in success, I think that's really cool. So, and as you grow, and again, Maven have been absolutely key for that, as was Living Bridge afterwards, they over-index for the advice of build a team around you. The team around you is the single most important thing you can ever do. And a piece of advice there is buy bigger than you need. So don't get the people that you think you need for where you are right now. Get the people that you think you'll need when you're 2 years down the line. Because otherwise that rechange is brutal, and it will dent you. So it's better to try to think a little bit ahead and design with the end in mind. A personal one is just go faster. Don't wait. I see a lot of people that are waiting for the product to be perfect, or they're 2 years into their development and still haven't had revenue or any confirmation that what they're building is good. And they're getting in their own way. Life's too short. Just go at it. Just go at it. And the big secret is nobody knows what they're doing. We're all trying stuff and seeing what sticks. There is no recipe. And that's also probably true. There is no recipe, right? So when I started working with private equity, David, who was one of our investment directors, and he was phenomenal. First proper mentor, coach, and nothing I could have done without him. He said that there is no template. People can come to us and say, so tell me the top 5 things, or the template, the formula that you think I should be running this company. It doesn't exist, right? That's our job. The job that we have is to kind of make it all happen. So if you're expecting that by moving to the next equity round or the next investor, they might be able to finally give you the 10 commandments of how to run your company, it just doesn't exist. And nobody has it. And so I think there's a freedom when you know that, but there's also a responsibility that comes when you realize that it's up to you. I don't know if those are advice, but those are a couple of things. There's also something about saying no quicker. I've always regretted probably not saying no faster, and not wasting time on conversations that are going nowhere. It's so easy to be dragged down through a bit of kindness and empathy and giving everybody airtime. You suddenly realize that your entire time has been given away to other people and not necessarily with any return. So I think becoming really shrewd about the return of your time is brutal. And I'm learning that lesson every day, right? We're still going at it in my team. How are we curating where we spend time? Because it's so easy to get leeches of that time for no ill intent. And people tend to be kind. You want to talk to people, and that suddenly takes 90% of your time, and you haven't done thinking or the execution that you need to do. Just a whole bunch of stuff in there. Hopefully somebody can distill something that's good for them.
No, it's brilliant. Thank you so much. It has been amazing to chat to you. You're so full of energy and positivity. So I'm going to leave feeling very inspired. I hope you have an amazing break. And
thank you so much.
To seeing how Quorum Cyber progressed. But good luck with it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been great to see you.
Thanks,
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Well, thank you so much to Federico for that brilliant chat. If you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to hit like or subscribe. That would be brilliant. We'd love it if you would do that. And also, if you want to hear more from our inspirational investees, then head over to mavencp.com. I'll see you soon.